Olivia Pope is dead. Long live Olivia Pope. Hey everybody, it's Katrina. Welcome back. Yeah, to a video review, commentary, whatever, I don't know. Anyway, excuse the overly made up face. I was trying on a new complexion product and it's giving me cake face, but I'm not about to wash my face and start over, so whatever. Okay, so this is some thoughts and comments on the 708 Robin episode from Scandal. And I am trying to fight perfectionism and feeling like I need to write an essay before I actually come on camera. So I just want to come on with my thoughts, and if they're enough, they're enough. And if I leave something out and want to build on that later on my blog, katrinapavela.tumblr.com, then I will. So I have something to say about quite a lot of the scenes that we got in the episode, and then I kind of have this overall thought on what I felt was a theme of both death and birth or renewal in the episode, because the episode is called Robin, and Robins are a symbol of kind of starting over or new birth or the spring or something like that. And obviously we have the baby that Quinn and Charlie wanted to name Robin. We first hear that name in the first real scene, and Charlie mentions that, and then we get Robin at the end. And I'll talk about the death aspects that actually apply to Olivia mostly as we go along, because there are really three key kind of death moments. Okay, I want to talk about Mellie at OPA. At first, I was super annoyed that she was there, because not 2 episodes ago, this bitch could barely remember Quinn's name. Like, yeah, who's your friend again? What was her name? Quinn, was it? How is she? Have you found her? Like, really? And then suddenly you remember that she actually worked on your campaign. You remember when you were being a real bitch to her and Huck back in season 5B? I forgot. Anyway, I was annoyed, but then I thought, all right, this scene is not about, oh, let's try to make Mellie look good, or Shonda's just trying to make her fave shine. Y'all know who you are, who are out there. I can't stand Mellie, but I always try to think, what is the purpose of this scene? I even do that with Jake, who I fucking loathe. So I came up with 2 reasons why Mellie was there. 1, Olivia says to her, she tries to get out of the glare of the gladiators and escape the guilt of what she has done, and trying to reflect on that by going back to the White House with Mellie. She says, Madam President, I know there's a lot of pressing work, so I'll, ride back with you. And Mellie stops her and says, no, you take all the time you need, be here with your family, which is the last place she wants to be. Olivia typically uses work as a means of avoidance or escape. Every time a problem comes up, she tries to work through it. After her kidnapping, that's how she tried to get back to normal. When her name got leaked again, she got exposed at the very end of 501, she ran to Quinn's to go find a case that she could work on and get out of town and escape everything that was happening. So for a very long time, diving into work has been a means of avoidance. And because Mellie puts the kibosh on that without really knowing the ramifications of what she said will be for Olivia, that's how we get some of the really great beginnings of emotional breakthrough and breakdown for Olivia in this episode, because work becomes an option that she can't go to. And she's already closed off her Jake hash. She made a promise to him that this is the last time, right, in 701, that we will not have sex again. And she does not go to him for escape or comfort sex in this episode. So what she's ultimately left with is the alcohol, which doesn't prove enough, and I'll talk more about that. The second reason why I think Mellie is there is to have her sympathy and seeming softness, to set that up to contrast later with when she eventually finds out about Olivia's role in Rashad's murder, because Mellie still doesn't know about that. She knows that Olivia negotiated the peace treaty. She doesn't know Olivia was responsible for Rashad's murder on U.S. soil at that. So if everything has to come out, Olivia's involvement with Quinn has to come out, and therefore with Rashad has to come out, because Quinn is connected to that as well. And Mellie will find out. And Olivia already promised before that she was not going to go behind Mellie's back anymore, and she did that exact same thing and ruined for Mellie a connection she thought she was having with someone who could understand the position that she was in as a powerful woman in leadership. connection. And Olivia has taken that away from her yet again, as happened with Marcus. But Mellie can't really blame Olivia too much because Mellie wanted the outcome at any cost, and this was the consequence. But I will save that for when that storyline actually happens. Anyway, those are two reasons I think Mellie shows up, because that's the only time we see her. She's not really needed for the rest of the episode. So skip to the funeral parlor. They're trying to pick out a casket, and they end up not going with that and go with something very Charlie and Quinn-ish and very B613-ish. But what I thought was interesting is that Charlie asks Olivia to write the eulogy. And I also thought that on the part of the writers, that was a good decision, because I think that facilitates Olivia's breakdown even more, because a eulogy, to eulogize someone, requires that you find a way to connect to their spirit, connect to their life, connect to them as a person, and say something meaningful about them. And Olivia can't connect to that because the guilt of what she's done is eating her away, and her responsibility in all of that. So throughout the episode, Olivia is experiencing all of these extremes of disconnection, and she uses various tools to kind of facilitate those until we get to the end, which I'll talk about soon. But I just thought getting her to kind of do that was a good idea. Also, I think Olivia and Quinn's fate have been intertwined. I was thinking about this. Like, Olivia and Quinn's fate has been intertwined since Defiance. Olivia created Quinn in a way. Like, literally, she gave her the name Quinn Perkins, had Huck rescue her. Quinn was saved from the collateral damage of Defiance, even though she was still very damaged by Defiance. Quinn died too. Well, Lindsay Dwyer died. And then Quinn had to kind of go on this whole journey. Mostly in season 3, we see it, where she begins to figure out who this Quinn person is, or who this Quinn person is going to be, since Lindsay is no longer available to her. And what I believe starts to happen in this episode is a kind of deterioration and the breakdown of the illusion that Liv kept for so long of who this Olivia Pope TM personality was, that she had built on an adolescent misunderstanding. Because this is an identity that she invented when she was a teenager. Anyway, Olivia lies about the pin, the something borrowed pin, when Huck asks her about it, something else. But the thing is, she knows that Huck is going to find out. She's got to know. And maybe actually she wants to be found out. Maybe she can't do the confessing herself, but she's no longer obstructing justice, if you will, and probably knows that her time is up. But one of the reasons why I'm highlighting this scene is because of what happens later with the Judas kiss in Liv's office between her and Huck. And there's some interesting parallels, comparisons, contrasts, if you will, between her and Huck in this episode as addicts, right? Because Huck's storyline has pretty much always been one of addiction. And we follow that storyline and the ways that he's attempted to recover and then relapse and recover and then relapse. And Olivia is also an addict. She's an addict of chaos, this addict of pain and avoidance of addressing her adolescent wound of losing her mother and the chaos that ensues, from that. But yeah, so this lie, I think, is important to what comes later. We see Huck talking to Quinn's dead body, and I've got 2 questions. One, who the fuck's body is that? It's still a pregnant woman, because when they get the news from David earlier in the episode about Quinn's body being found, Charlie asks about the baby, and David confirms that, yeah. So basically, we know that this woman is pregnant. You can actually see a little bit of a belly in the scene, which kind of doesn't make any sense, but whatever. And so I'm like, Rowan, you didn't happen upon a dead pregnant woman. Did you kill a pregnant woman still? And then burn her body? Where did you get this woman from? So that's still a thing. But on another note, seeing this dead pregnant woman, and obviously I thought about, what the heck did Rowan do? Where did he get this body? Because at first I thought, is that Lucy? Because she turns out to be B613, of course, which I don't think Olivia knows, because she essentially is a double agent for that asshole Jake. But the burned pregnant body actually made me think about Olivia's abortion, weirdly enough, because it made me think, you are avoiding bringing a child into a world where your father existed because this is what he's capable of. And if you had an actual progeny that he could infect with his sickness or use against you, you couldn't bear the thought of that, especially as a woman who actually let this monster out of prison because you couldn't confront getting married to the man who's the love of your life because the situation wasn't right. And you knew that you, as a person, weren't right and that the relationship would fail. So it's very complicated, and yeah, my mind went there because it just like it connected. Let's remember that it's Rowan's voice that we hear over Olivia's abortion playing out about how family is a weakness and they're basically this burden that you think, oh, they bring love and joy to you to your life, but actually what they do is they end up just creating a burden. And of course, that's the relationship that Olivia and her father have as family, is this burden. There's no joy there, there's no light there, there's no consolation there, there is no worthiness there, right? There is no connection there. There is blood, but there's very little else. The next scene is the bone delivery to Rowan. Now this scene is really interesting because, again, this for me is the first instance of Olivia Pope is dead. And when I say Olivia Pope, I mean the persona Olivia Pope trademark is dead, right? So this is one. The bones of Annie, his dinosaur, are delivered. And Annie is not just his hobby, his sense of joy. Annie is also kind of like a makeshift child. And she's a perfect child because she's not a person. She's something that Rowan derives pleasure from, but has no autonomy and is incapable of doing anything to defy him or make him upset or unhappy. She literally exists only for his pleasure, right? And Rowan gets the bones back, which is what he sought by using Quinn as a tool. Olivia and Rowan both weaponized Quinn. So it made me laugh in the funeral parlor scene when Charlie talks about turning Quinn and putting her ashes into bullets. And Olivia's like, we can't turn Quinn into a weapon. I was like, bitch, that's exactly what you and your father did. You turned Quinn into a weapon like she wasn't a person in this sick game of chicken that you two play. Like, Olivia, you're never going to fucking get the approval of your father, right? Anyway, I'm off topic. The bone delivery, Olivia's bones that get delivered to Rowan after she dies in the very last scene that we see in 707 when Olivia thinks Quinn has died, right? That her bluff was called. And it was a test in a lot of ways that Olivia failed. And success for him would be for her to not have been broken up. Success would have been to eliminate her Chewy center, which she was not able to do. Okay, so the bones are, those are Olivia's bones, and he's sad to get them in a way. And they haven't freed him from anything, which that was never his point anyway. This has always been a sick game that he's playing with Olivia. He's been testing her at every stage and trying to both turn her into some better version of him while also securing her as his lifetime companion. And in the end, what happens is that he eats her and her bones are delivered to him. And that's all he has left. The fun is over and he's got to start over in some way. Because the game that he played with Olivia was quite literally sustaining him. Picking at her, consuming her, eating her, was keeping him alive. So we have Fitz the friend showing up to her apartment. And I knew it was him because, one, I know my Fitzgerald. And if he knew what happened, obviously he was going to show up. And two, I knew from the pause that Olivia did after looking through the peephole that it was him. And though she was a complete bratty biatch to him, and of course that angers me, I have to place it in context of how she's behaved in the past. And I know what she's doing. And Fitz knows what she's doing. And here's what it is. Olivia's anger makes her feel powerful. And it is a defensive mechanism. You know how you put up a wall and not only does it keep someone else out, it keeps you in? So she's been doing that for a while. And when it comes to Fitz, it's a case of we lash out at the people closest to us, and we see that he is the person closest to her emotionally by the end. And her ability to connect that emotion shows actually that there's still a person left in there. Let's not forget the lack of those qualities is why Curtis dumps her at the end of episode 5, right? That he thought she had some human qualities and he was wrong about that. Well, we start to see those coming through this episode. This kind of end of all this disconnectedness, that anger and chaos intensifies and blocks the feeling of connection to another person. We've seen Olivia pull this move of becoming really angry and blaming Fitz and misplacing and projecting her anger, my dogs, onto him. We saw her do it after her kidnapping. We saw her do it famously in 509, something that, I'm still connected. Hello, I'm really trying to record something here. Hey, can you take your plane downstairs? Down. Downstairs. Thank you very much. Olivia's anger makes her feel powerful, and her anger at Fitz is not about him at all, but about rejecting what he represents because she can't face it, and that is the truth. She knows Fitz sees her for the good and the bad, and in this moment, she knows that she is a bad person, and she is trying to come to grips with that. And him, as a good person and a person that sees her, I think she doesn't feel like she deserves his sympathy, his condolences, his empathy in this moment because she doesn't have it for herself. So a lot of her, these angry ways in which she treats Fitz, we've seen them time and time again. She did it after her kidnapping, right? She placed a bunch of blame on him. All of her anger, she lashed out at him. It's not really about him, but about the situation or about her. 509, we see her do it, and many of us were flummoxed at where this came from. But that was more about her that she was projecting, which I wrote about. You can go read it. We saw her do it in 516 when he comes to her and he's like, look, we don't have to be these people anymore. Let's try to do better. And she's like, oh, you're magically doing better right now. You're no better than me, which that's where Cyrus is right now with Fenton Glackland, okay? We saw Olivia do it in 611 where she rails at Fitz about her father. And it's one of the first times we see Fitz like really understand that what this woman is doing with him. He stops like engaging her in these angry kind of missives because he knows that it's a projection. He finally gets it after that distance from her, what it is that she's doing, and that this isn't about him, that it's about her, and that he needs to try to lean into the situation and help her and not engage in warfare, which is what she wants, because that only further prolongs the deflection and the spinning that she tries, not spinning, but the spin that she tries off of to take attention away from herself and onto somebody else. We saw her, last time we saw her do it was in 705 with him, when she comes to his hotel room in yellow shoes and a yellow purse, which signifies her cowardice and deceit in that moment. So anyway, it made me mad, but I knew where it was coming from because it's classic Olivia Pope move of deflection in that way. And I think what I found interesting after I LOL'd, I just said LOL out loud. No, after I laughed so much when she said, I have amazing friends. And Fitz is looking at the tumbleweeds like, so many friends, I can see. You don't need me after all, do you? But I think one of the most interesting things about the scene is that Olivia, because she does not feel worthy of Fitz's kindness and empathy in that moment, because again, she doesn't have it for herself, and it's a really important point here. She takes what she can get from him, which is the alcohol, right? Because she can use that, right? That's not going to judge her in that moment. And Fitz wouldn't either, but she's judging herself. And she takes the alcohol from him as a kind of one-uppance and slams the door in his face. And we eventually see that alcohol proves to not be enough, that she eventually needs the actual person and not the thing that she can, not this object that she can get from him. Next, we have Jake and Cyrus. And
I just want to say, fuck Jake Ballard. You're dusty, your hair is uneven, and you're not that cute. And you will never prosper, okay? And I hope Cyrus kills you. May God not have mercy on your soul.
On to more important things. Huck and Fitz scene. I'm not going to lie. I got really teary-eyed in this scene on multiple levels. One, because as early as after 752, 219, I am on record as saying that Huck is Olivia's platonic Fitz, that she can say the things to him that she couldn't say to a married Fitz, there has something to do with seeing her and the eyes. You remember Olivia says that in 719 that Huck is the one that saved her because she saw sadness in his eyes that she connected with. And of course, we know that that connection was via her father and B613 and the pain and the damage and the family being taken that Rowan has played a key role in for both of these people, right? And even Fitz later on, if you think about Rowan having his son murdered, that he's taken things from all of these people. Charlie too now. But I cried a little bit because it's a scene that felt affirming in a lot of ways. Both of them are affirmed in that they see Olivia and that something is wrong. So many people have tried to tell Fitz, especially Jake, that, or, there's no problem with Olivia. You don't really know her. You're just trying to capture some version of her that you want for you, and she's beyond saving right now. And Huck is suspected that something is wrong. Huck is a very perceptive person, and he was recruited into B613 because of that perceptiveness. So is Fitz, no matter how much people try to underestimate him. He sees, and he's an extremely emotionally intelligent person, and connected to his emotions, which is why I, as someone identify a lot with him and his sensitivity. It's me in a lot of ways. But also, I got emotional because the look on Huck's face when he realized that not only was he not crazy, Fitz sees it too, but that Fitz is a good person because he has been side-eyeing and judging Olivia as this very protective brother figure, and not in the way that Jake thinks he has been. Protective brother figure of side-eyeing Fitz, because all he saw was what Olivia allowed him to see. It was the sadness and the pain and the hurt. He never saw any of the joy. He doesn't know she's dreamed of being married to him or being involved. He doesn't know any of that. All these people only know the bits and pieces of sour-faced Olivia that they've seen in these moments, because all of them only see the parts of her that she has allowed them to see, and so that's who they think that she is and the life that she leads. So that was one of the best scenes for me. Shout out to the director entering the scene on the Black Lives Matter poster in Fitz's office. I see you, and I see the poignancy and relationship to the scene and Olivia. Next, we have the Fenton and Cyrus scene, and I know people probably underrate this scene a little bit, but I actually think there's a parallel going on between what Cyrus is going through and what Olivia is going through. This sense of exposure and having to face up to the person that you've been this whole time and deciding who it is that you really are and who you want to be going forward. And this is really just a tipping point or the beginning. We've seen Cyrus try to be on the straight and narrow this season and thinking he was, just kind of going to go with the flow and try to stay in his lane. And he relented and opened himself up to Fenton, someone he thought was beneath him. And really, it turns out Fenton is kind of better than you, Cyrus, because Fenton knows who he is. And he has a sense of accountability and a moral center that he's not really willing to obliterate. He's not chasing power in the same way. But the point being, Fenton essentially tells Cyrus that you're a bad person. And Cyrus kind of rejects that up front, needing to see Fenton as a person on his level or no better than them. And when people need to do that, it means that they want to escape examination. You can go back to 509 and Olivia trying to do the same, trying to make herself out to be better than Fitz in some way. At least my father loved me. But you know deep down that that's not the truth. Maybe he ain't even your daddy. I don't know. Side note, there is absolutely no way that Jake Ballard isn't involved in what Fenton Glackland has found out about Cyrus and Charlie. That shit is not Googleable. You don't find out that Charlie was Cyrus's hitman without some kind of intervention. So whoever Fenton's people are, they've been helped in some way. Next is one of my favorite scenes of this episode, and what I call the whiskey/addiction scene. We have this brilliant little moment of Huck going to an AA meeting. Whiskey is a code for his torturing people that he believes are bad people to get the truth out of them. We see that scene interspersed with Olivia drinking, presumably the whiskey, bourbon, scotch that Olivia takes from Fitz when he had showed up to her door, right? She can't connect to anything. She can't write the eulogy. She's frustrated. She keeps drinking to try to deaden and numb that pain that she is feeling. with the contrast here between these two addicts of Olivia and Huck is that Huck goes to the meeting to try to deal with this in a productive and healthy way and stop his kind of worst instincts. And we see Olivia giving into those instincts because she is really disconnected and can't really open up, acknowledge. And so she's trying to drown it in her vice. The next scene is Abby and David. And I know this could seem like a really throwaway scene, but I want to touch on it because of something that I've been thinking about the last few months. Abby in this scene essentially cops to her desire for normal. She tells David, right, to make sure I have an actual coffin, make sure it's pretty, and I have a normal funeral. People who insist on or chase things that are extraordinary or define themselves as not normal are really kind of people who have a deep insecurity about themselves that they're not enough. Therefore, they have to seek to prove that through being extraordinary. Whereas people who have extraordinary intellect are normally see themselves as pretty normal. They may think that their intelligence is exceptional in different ways, but they don't seek to define themselves as exceptional, right? And that is the difference. And so I actually think this is a sign of emotional maturity, because on a personal note, I think I have always felt that I was destined to be or do something different that stood out in some kind of special way. And in a weird way, getting dogs and the way I fell in love with them, I started to have this reoccurring vision about a year ago of me in a house that's bigger than what I have and in a kind of more rural setting, where I was watching my dogs from the window of my kitchen. And there was a bigger kitchen than I have now, and they had a huge kind of backyard to play around in. They were chasing each other and kind of doing this wrestling thing that they do, which always makes me so happy. And I felt so fulfilled and so joyous. And the rest of what I was doing, my business, Born Beautiful Natural, my PhD, by that point I was Dr. Pravela, and I was also teaching. But my sense of joy just came from watching my dogs outside feeling free to kind of run around. And I've held on to this vision as something I'm working towards realizing. And it's so simple and almost stupid, really. But I actually saw it as a sign of not just yielding, but giving up this idea of being the best at whatever. All I want is for what I do to make a difference. Whether it's in the products I create, the things that I teach, what I write, what I say, is for someone to connect with that, because ultimately connection is why we're here. And if you can't connect to anything real, then you can't really survive. Right, so Abby's desire for a normal kind of funeral made me think that she had grown as a person. And we began to see that. I have had to which wife. We began to see that at the end of last season when she realized that she wasn't a good person, and she shared that with David. So for her to also share this with David, I really hope that they kind of end up together as they do in the AU. So the whole normalcy thing reminded me of when we first meet Olivia Pope and she insists that she's not normal. And sometimes we loud that as, people are extraordinary. They don't want to be, some normal, country bumpkin or ordinary person. Of Olivia and this whole persona and this identity she's developed for herself, I actually feel like the things that she wants are closer to a normalcy that she's kind of afraid of in a lot of ways. And we see that also playing out in the AU. Her life looked pretty normal. She was still accomplishing things and affecting change, but she was a normal person. Next, the broken glass of rock bottom. We have been waiting for rock bottom for a while now. And speaking to Janikas, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, on Twitter, and she, mentioned this, when we were talking about the scene, and I mentioned Olivia being this sad old drunk, which is another line from the AU that Quinn says to Fitz, and it's really, a lot of the stuff that happens to Fitz in the AU is really about Olivia. We were having a talk on Twitter, and she said something about this scene. We've been waiting for rock bottom, and she's right. And it's not about rock bottom being an event. Jane Armstrong05 on Twitter, who's brilliant and is much more knowledgeable in these things, always talks about rock bottom being a feeling. And I think that really comes through in this episode in different stages. So we hear the glass breaking, which is also what Huck hears, right? And it's so symbolic that it's a broken glass. This container of things kind of falls apart, and Olivia is not able to repair the glass this time, through working through it or avoidance or escaping to an island or any of that bullshit or fucking the shit out of Jake or some other guy. She's not able to utilize her other crutches, and glass breaking it kind of breaks that alcohol crutch as well, because she doesn't have a container for it anymore, and the pieces are on the floor and she is trying to pick them up. She is those broken pieces on the floor. And what follows in the speech that she gives to Huck are all of those shards kind of breaking apart that she's trying to contend with and deal with. Her inability to protect Quinn and actually being a key part of harming and perhaps ending Quinn in her mind. Right? Her entire identity is built around this notion of protection. And she defined herself as, I am a protector. When I see people in need, I feel it is my duty to assist them. This is a girl who has formed an identity and ideology of the world that is based in adolescence. A girl that does not know very much beyond the hurt and her limited years of experience, her sense of abandonment by her mother in death, and her fatherment, okay, I've had too much alcohol, and her father in this kind of literal physical distance that he puts between them. So this identity is formed in a vacuum, trying to find something to hold on to and a purpose in life. And in the scene with Huck, it's coming apart that she sees that this was stupid. Because if I think about it, gladiators got eaten. They got eaten by lions. And in this whole metaphor, not metaphor because that was real, but if we look at this as a metaphor, Rowan is a lion here. And I said this to y'all back in December, when I wrote about what do I think Rowan is doing, I literally said, Rowan is trying to eat Olivia. He is consuming her, right? Because he survives on this cycle between the two of them and these games that he plays. He needs her, which Olivia actually identified in 409 before she gets kidnapped, and she tells him, you're not leaving. You're never leaving, because you're a sad man who depends on thinking that you essentially pull the strings and that the world can't exist without you. And in some ways, she became that person or a version of that person, but still one that was not good enough for Rowan. So back to Olivia forming this identity of the protector. It is an identity born in adolescence out of arrested development, and one that was in a vacuum of hurt and pain. And the identity in that moment with Huck, it has to die. So this is the second death, right? Where she recognizes that this was bullshit. It was always bullshit. We know that alcohol tends to be a truth serum, and she's gone back to her old office / Quinn's office, essentially to try to find this girl, right? The auspices are finding a connection with Quinn so she can write this eulogy, but really what she's there is to find the Olivia that she has known, because that's the last place she left her. And we'll talk about that in the mock funeral scene, because that is the memory that Olivia conjures when she thinks of Quinn. We also have the sense of two addicts, right? One bearing witness to the other's pain. And Olivia, we have a reversal here of the Jesus and Judas scene. We have Huck and Olivia, Huck as the leader, so she's supposed to be the Jesus figure, the one who the disciples, who are the gladiators, follow. And Judas betrayed Christ, and he knew he was going to be betrayed by one of his gladiators. And maybe Olivia knows that it's Huck that's going to betray her, because he's the smartest and most perceptive of them all. And perhaps she knew it when she lied about that pin the day before, right? So we get the Judas kiss between them. And this is going to be a moment of betrayal. I just hope that Olivia doesn't try to kill herself before everything comes out. The white hat. Olivia puts the white hat on, again, as part of this searching that she is doing, right? Before Quinn disappears, we hear her tell Olivia, your OPA was never about justice, mine will be. And perhaps that's why Quinn had the white hat out, right? Because she believed in that mythology of the white hat of justice. And here we have Olivia saying that this is bullshit. She puts it on and she looks in the mirror and she's like, I remember it being prettier. And it's such a loaded statement because in a way, she's talking about herself and the ugliness of it all, which kind of relates back to Cyrus and what he fears inside him versus what Fenton initially saw in him and then kind of saw the ugliness beneath all of that. Olivia looks at herself in this white hat, and she doesn't like the picture. It's not pretty. Mirror is giving back to her is not something that she necessarily wants to see, but she needs to see. And she laughs at it. She's mocking that image, literally, of Olivia Pope, the protector, the savior that she projected and people started to believe in because she doesn't believe in that person anymore. And she lost that person a while ago. As a matter of fact, she imbued Quinn with that old identity and she hasn't found anything else to latch onto yet. One other thing. So also in this moment, in this kind of searching, it relates to this idea of failure. If you remember in her kidnapping, I think it was Otto, the one who she ends up shooting in the head, tells her that there are fates worse than death, right? And we've always wondered, okay, what are some of the fates worse than death? And one of the things that I came up with was living a life based in fear. And we've seen that play out with Olivia after the kidnapping and certainly from 109 forward as her desperation to find something to cling to increased. But President Rashad from Bashran actually defined it really well in 704. And he said that his greatest fear was failing his people. And I thought, that's a fate worse than death. It's failing your people. And what Olivia has done by telling Huck that essentially gladiators are supposed to protect, that she didn't protect Quinn, she did the opposite in aiding and abetting her death. But also, Olivia failed her people, as in her gladiator family, because she is not the person that she led them to believe that she was, the image that she projected. She's failed in that way, and she's dealing with confronting that failure, and which to her, failure or losing is worse than death. We remember when she was out for the presidency, she repeatedly talked about the fact that she couldn't lose, that she deserved this, she needed this, that she can't fail, right? That winning for her was everything. And whenever winning comes above your own integrity, sense of moral, or things that you believe in, that they've replaced those other things because you no longer have them, you are in trouble. And we've seen that play out with her. Next, we have a scene with Rowan looking at the dry bones, but he is putting them back together, which I think is really interesting, in that he's rebuilding this kind of dead daughter of his to something that he can once again get joy from, which to me relates to the last scene where we see, lo and behold, he has baby Robin in a crib in his house. Like, is she his replacement Olivia, his replacement daughter, which kind of represents him reconstructing these Annie bones. But side note, where the fuck did Rowan get a staff from? All these people who are working for him. Who's paying for that? Olivia? The government? His retirement? Who's paying for that? Like, I don't know. I just noticed and I'm like, oh, you have staff now. That's really interesting. Is that part of Olivia's concession to you? You get your bones and you get a staff? I don't know. Okay, so then we have the third death scene of Olivia Pope is the mock funeral, right? Olivia's eulogy is complete trash. Okay, and we already talked about why it's trash, because she can't connect to the person that Quinn was, because Olivia can't even connect to her damn self, right? She's too guilty to say anything meaningful, probably for fear of confessing the whole thing. But sorry, I see a woman who kind of wants to be found out, is hoping to be found out, because the fatigue of hiding, which she confesses to Jake in 707, is too much. She's tired. She can't bear this anymore. So I really feel like rock bottom has been reached, and climbing out of it is definitely going to be a process. And I also think that because rock bottom is a feeling, it's going to go through stages. It's not a singular event. So we have the office moment, and then we get the moment, with showing up at Fitz's door. Later, we get the mock funeral moment. So it's building, but this episode was definitely a start. So anyway, again, the mock funeral. I thought it was really interesting, as I mentioned earlier, that Liv's memory that she recalls before she puts the bullet into the ground to lay Quinn to rest is about the transition point when Quinn becomes Olivia Pope TM, right down to taking her office, taking over the firm. OPA, QPA is just one letter down the alphabet, as Quinn mentioned in 701. And because Quinn was Olivia's invention, I see in that scene, it makes me think about the ways in which Quinn has, in a sense, superseded Olivia, not as a persona, but as a person who connects to her work. We have Quinn running this firm, Quinn in a relationship about to get married. She's got the guy. Quinn also having people that love her and that she loves, relationships she has cultivated. Think about the memory that Abby brings up. It's the two of them where Abby tells her, you want to have a baby? Let's have a baby. I'm going to be here and I'm going to help. You can do this. You can have a baby and run a business at the same time. Right? Contrary to what Olivia thought back in 509, that she was going to be giving up all these things. Quinn didn't think about it as giving up. She thought about how she could integrate, balance, and manage all these things, and the fact that it was going to take a village to be able to do it. Quinn as the man, she's about to have the marriage. She was about to have the marriage, still is. And the baby that Olivia never connected to despite being named as godmother. Why the fucking hell? She called Quinn's baby a that. Right? A mini Quinn. All of these things. Won't invite Quinn in to Pete, doesn't ask about how she's feeling in the first episode. Really tried to not even see Quinn as a woman who was about to have a baby, because Quinn kind of has the life that Olivia thought that she was going to have. And she gave that up. You look at her and it disgusts you because you see your own failures, right? Your own inabilities. And essentially, I have a lot of sympathy for Olivia, as much as she annoys me in these ways, because it's nothing more frustrating than seeing somebody stand in their own way. And that's her to a T. And in this funeral, the transition is a kind of death of Olivia Pope that perhaps Olivia did not recognize at the time, because she was so thankful that someone was there to take over her legacy of OPA so she could go to the White House. But she left a lot of Olivia Pope TM behind. Recall that I think it was 705 when she goes to see Quinn at OPA. Quinn is the one who reminds her about the cardinal rule of asking the client, what do you want? Olivia forgot that. She forgot about a lot of things. She forgot about justice. It became just about what is the win here? Which is how Rashad ends up dead, because the win of the peace treaty becomes what's ultimately more important. The win over her father becomes ultimately more important than Quinn's life and that of her unborn child. So that is my third kind of Olivia Pope is dead. And so when she shoots the bullet into the ground and says, rest in peace, Quinn, it's really a kind of rest in peace, Olivia, if we think about the Olivia Pope Quinn Perkins duality, the OPQP reality of the two of them. Never forget that we meet Olivia Pope through Quinn. Quinn is how we find out about Olivia Pope, and how, and through eyes, we see Olivia for the first time. Cyrus, as I said, there's some mirroring here between him and what's going on with Olivia, but in a less dramatic way. Cyrus is in his office and he looks at the painting that he got from Fenton, and what I think he's trying to find in it is the beauty, not of the painting, because he already knows it's beautiful and breathtaking. It is the beauty that Fenton saw in him reflected in the painting. He's trying to find that, and perhaps he thinks that deep down he is an ugly and bad person, and trying to find out, well, what did Fenton see in me that he saw in this painting? And it just made me think about Olivia in the white hat looking in the mirror. And obviously I thought about the AU, Fitz looking in the mirror after the aborted kind of blowjob scene with Lindsay Dwyer, aka Quinn. So Quinn is the catalyst for this reflection, both in the AU and in real life. In the AU for Fitz, and in real life for Olivia. And in a weird way, it ends up playing out with Cyrus as well. All right, let's get to what you've been waiting for and live at Fitz's door. For me, this is less of a Olivia Pope is dead scene and a kind of tentative transition to the changes or acknowledgement that an addict like Olivia Pope needs to make in order to recover and create an adult self and a woman who has autonomy, because as long as she plays this game with her father, she does not have autonomy. She doesn't have any autonomy because he runs her life, and she allows him to do that because she's never dealt with her adolescent wound. No matter how much we get hurt in this world and the things that happen to us as children, and I certainly have dealt with my own issues. You know, I have a wound at the age of 12, just like Olivia, of losing my mother to prison, not death, but to prison. And I guess Olivia lost her mom to imprisonment as well at a crucial time. And not until my 30s, even after a lot of therapy, did I begin to think about my mother as a person who had things that she lost as well, and not just my mother. So I had to take responsibility for how I was going to recover from that. And Olivia is the only one who was in charge of that. Not Fitz, not her father, not her gladiators, not anyone. But she does kind of begin in a foundational place of truth and a genuine connection that she has made. And probably one of the first kind of autonomous choices that she made for herself that wasn't about revenge with him, but was about genuine connection, being seen, and allowing herself, even momentarily, to be vulnerable. So she goes to Fitz. The mountain came to Muhammad. Guys, we have been waiting for Olivia to initiate something after Fitz chasing her. He stayed in Washington for his work, but I think also out of a sense that at least I'm here if she ever gets around to the point where she needs me, or she wants to engage. The ball is in her court. And she comes to him, and I love that the scene is completely silent, right? It's about her facial expressions, his, and always with the two of them, a sense of so much history and subtext between them. Because I've always said that Olivia is a show, don't tell person. Whenever she talks too much, I feel like she's deflecting and spinning. The moments when she doesn't, there's something truthful there, no matter how much it hurts, that's real. And she shows up, and she doesn't say anything, and her head is kind of bowed. And that is Olivia's way of acknowledging that I need a friend right now. I need help. I need someone. And that can only come after the broken glass scene, where she has a recognition that this was all bullshit, and she's trying to salvage something that's real and truthful. But with Olivia, it's baby steps. So she asks for just a night. She's seeking comfort. And she doesn't go to Jake as she had in the past. One, because she cut that off, but also because Jake doesn't have anything real to offer her. Remember, she told him, I think it was in 414, when he comes to her apartment to gaslight her about Vanessa, she tells him, nothing you do is real. Underneath it all, she knows that that relationship is not real, but he made her feel less bad about the person she was because he was worse. Just as she protected her father, because as Huck said, she needed him. As long as he was alive and out there as her guy, nothing she did was worse in comparison. And he, with this thing that happens with Quinn, tied their fates together. So even though Rowan pulled the literal trigger, she's no better than he is, because she gambled with that woman's life and allowed that to happen because she was trying to win and she was trying to hide what she had done. So this moment with Fitz is really huge in a lot of ways because of this silent acknowledgement of needing help, which I think Olivia had always seen as a weakness, which is why she didn't go to therapy, why she didn't want to, for so long, really acknowledge the love with her and Fitz sort of like publicly, because it made her feel weak, this thing called love. And weakness is not the same thing as vulnerability. I'm tired of writing about it. You want to go check a professional. Again, go check Brene Brown and how these two things are different. Vulnerability is a part of life, and it also reflects kind of one of my dedications for 2018 is this idea of finding the strength in vulnerability, finding the strength in fragility, because without fragility, strength has no meaning. And I think Olivia has to recognize that before she can rise from the ashes, if you will, like a phoenix, as a woman who's forming herself as an adult. So Fitz asks her what she needs, which is a contrast with the first scene at OPA where Olivia asks Charlie what he needs. And in a way, she's asking him that so she can busy herself. And here we have Fitz embracing Olivia, which reminded me of the bunker scene when he gives her a hug, but this time, he is no way connected to her misery as he was back then. And he's just there purely as someone who loves her and wants to be there for her. And she can barely get it out, and she asks for one night. And you can read this in several ways. You can say in a way, oh, she's just there to use him for sex, blah, blah, blah. sex is one of Olivia's coping methods, right? It's one of the ways in which she kind of tries to connect or obliterate the pain that she feels, or tries to, instead of feeling numb, uses sex as a way to feel something. She did it after her kidnapping with Russell. She's done it after leaving Fitz in the White House by starting a sexual relationship with Jake. She did it with Edison after, she kind of broke up with Fitz and she was mourning that relationship back in season 2. Edison shows up at her door and she's crying and she decides to have sex with him. So it kind of disgusts me, all these people who are out there being like, fuckface Fitzgerald Graham takes advantage of Olivia. And I'm like, you bitches worked so hard to misunderstand this man in this scene. Why? Because, to quote Rodimus Prime from The Black Guy Who Tips, most people's morality only extend to whether or not they like the person. So Aziz Ansari had a fucked up date with this woman, but I like him, so I'm going to defend him. But, this other person, Kevin Spacey, is an asshole. And I'm not saying that those two things are the same, but even with the Al Franken and the women that came out, no, we need to save Al Franken because the Democrats need to be together. And it's like, no, if you're a person of integrity, wrong is wrong. So Al Franken is wrong, Congressman is wrong, and he has to go too. Just because you like them doesn't mean what they did is wrong or different. So get off Fitz's dick just because Olivia wants to get on it. Okay? That's about what I have to say. She wants one night doesn't mean like I'm trying to use you. I think it's a reflection of the temporality of her situation. She's got to know that this is all going to come to a head and going to blow up in her face. So asking for one night before it all unravels, like she knows that it will, and asking for some comfort in that moment, I don't find anything wrong with that. Low-key, this reminds me of, in a little bit, on Insecure, when Dro drove Molly home after she has her illusion about her parents and relationships and the perfection is blown up when she finds out her father had cheated on her mom at some point. And this kind of destroys a lot for Molly. And Dro drives her home. He's a married man in an open marriage, but still. And she's seeking some comfort in that moment. And they have sex. And people were like, oh, he shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. And I think it's easy for you to say that, maybe for most people, when you're in a situation where you see the pain that someone is in and you're in a position, even if it is to offer your body or a hug or an ear or a shoulder or whatever it is, the thing that they need, and especially if you know that person, then in giving it to them, you're trying to do them a kindness. You're not trying to take advantage of them. You're just trying to yield to what it is they need, understanding that they're not capable of making a better decision in this moment. And that's what's happening between Olivia and Fitz. So I wasn't rejoicing in the sex of it, all, although Olivia is funny, like Fitz gets near her and she's all heavy breathing. Took her like 2 seconds before her hand was on his pecs.
Not his titties like Jake, but actual pectoral muscles.
But anyway, yeah. So I really, really enjoyed that scene because I think it's significant for Olivia and shows who Fitz is to her and also the kind of person Fitz is. And as a person who has a genuine connection to her, she's going to need that as she tries to recover and deal with this addiction. Lastly, we have the Charlie and Rowan and Robin scene. And Charlie shows up at Rowan's door, his red door. I thought it was interesting that we also saw that Huck's tool kit was red as well, a sense of danger. He goes to Rowan, believing he's lost everything, and he tells him that he wants to come in from the cold. He doesn't want to be the guy who feels things and has hope, and catches feelings or any of that. He wants to go back to that guy that he was before because he's lost so much. And for some reason, it clicked with me when he said he wanted to come in from the cold, and baby, it's cold outside came into my head. And I thought, holy shit, after 509, that's precisely what Olivia did. She essentially came in from the cold after leaving the White House and fully invested in this daddy's girl image with Rowan. And even when she goes back in 517 after killing Andrew, it's like she passed her B613 initiation test when she shows up at his door, which he knew she was going to do. So yeah, I thought about that, with Olivia being made and essentially being raised as a B613 agent. Then we hear the cry of Robin. And Jane Armstrong 05 had brought up, oh, I wonder if the baby heard Charlie's voice and recognized it, and so she cried. And I thought, maybe because Charlie mentioned in 706 how he used to talk to Quinn every night while she was asleep. Of course, the baby would have heard that, even if Quinn didn't. Charlie got to say all the things he wanted to say to Quinn, which were all the meaningful things. The baby would have heard and counted on that consistency of her father's voice. And so recognizing it outside the womb, perhaps cry. So interesting if that's what happens. Anyway, Charlie goes upstairs, sees the baby's there, asking whose baby is this. They get into a tussle, and it, kind of leaves off with Charlie choking the shit out of Rowan. And I feel like if there is a God, Charlie will be successful. Charlie has something to live for now, right? Suspecting that is his baby, and that's Robin, which takes me back to the original theme of the episode. The episode is named Robin. Robins are about rebirth and renewal. So after all this talk of death, symbolically and literally, even though it's not literal, I don't think, with Quinn, we see the newness, the rebirth unveiled at the end, the episode's title. And what's interesting is Rowan pronounced his daughter dead earlier in the episode, all the while knowing that he had this baby in his dead daughter's bedroom, which is also a time capsule of Olivia at the age of 12. Remember, after the age of 12, she never lives in that home again. And Rowan kept it that way, just like parents of dead children tend to keep their child's bedroom as it is, almost untouched, because they want to preserve the memory of that child at that time before, the loss. And Olivia has experienced a lot of loss since the age of 12. So is Robin Rowan's kind of replacement child? The red-breasted Robin has a touch of Rowan, born of B613 parents that Rowan has trained, or at least been responsible for training. Because don't forget, in season 3, Rowan is the reason why Charlie and Quinn even meet each other, and she gets involved in B613 because he's trying to manipulate Quinn away from Olivia and turn her. So all these people are connected to this man, and perhaps maybe Rowan sees that child is rightfully his, someone he can start over with, his new Olivia or his new Annie made manifest. And I think it also reflects the theme of using children as pawns and tools to play games, political games, or get what you want. Because Olivia was doing that from episode 702 with the ambassador's child, and then she did it again with Yasmin, and then obviously she did it with Quinn and Quinn's baby. And we see what the results of that have been for her. So I don't know how things are going to turn out with Robin and Charlie and Quinn and Rowan. But, like I said, if there's a God, this dude dies because Olivia can't live unless he dies. Rowan dies, either literally or the idea of him as this father figure dies for her. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this very long kind of thoughts on Scandal 708, titled Robin. And if you have any questions or any comments, please do let me know down in the comments. I do read all of them, and I tend to answer the questions on my videos because it's not as overwhelming. Okay, thanks guys. All right, bye.